Hello, welcome to another tutorial about how to use Nautiscore. So I've had a number of requests from people going, can you please talk us through the complete setup of a competition? Those requests have been from various people, some asking for a full setup where you create a judge, you create a pilot, and you create judges panels from scratch, and other requests have been, how do I use the generic judges and judges panel? What does that mean? So I've got my glass of whiskey in hand. I've got Nautiscore at the ready, and we're going to talk about it. I'll do a bit of an introduction first to set the scene. In my tutorial I do them in one cut mostly. I've had to re-record this intro because the webcam was atrocious, but I do them in one cut mostly, and if there's where I stumble over little mistakes or make common errors, that's okay. It can happen. Just show you what to do to fix them. It actually probably adds to the video. So what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to set up a sample competition using a generic judges panel and generic judges. I'm then going to set up a sample competition where I select my judges from the pilot database, and where I select my competitors from the pilot database, and part of that I will also create judges panels. By way of background for you, just like in a competition where you have a judges, that they're a panel. So you got a panel of judges for a flight in a competition. Nautiscore requires that too. You can have as many panels or as few panels as you like. Obviously, you can have a panel for each flight, or you can have one panel to cover preliminaries, one panel to cover semi-finals, one panel to cover finals. Up to you. It's fully customizable. My preference is I always use a panel per flight. So if I have a 4-flight competition or a 5-flight competition, I create a judges panel for each flight, and I allocate judges to that panel for that flight. Now that means a judge might be on 4 judges panel, a judge might be on 1. This is not about international events, world championships. This is about local usage of Nautiscore at a local competition. The reason I preference using a different judges panel for each flight is because things happen. You might have a judges panel with 3 judges, 4 judges, 5 judges, whatever the case may be, allocated, and a judge might take ill or might have to go home. And with Nautiscore, your judge has a judge ID when you're using the handheld unit. So when you're using the unit here, your judge has a judge ID. And in Australia, we tie the judge ID as actually their pilot number, so we know who's judged each fight in each competition. So if a judge is on, if you got one panel for all 4 flights of preliminaries, and you've got your judges allocated that panel, if a judge takes ill or is unavailable for whatever reason, you have to get another judge to sit in and use a different judge ID, a different judge's ID. That's where the generic judges work. A lot of people like generic judge 1, 2, 3 purely for that reason, because they can sit anyone in the chair and go, you're judge 1. I have a preference where I like to go and name the judges, and that's mainly because it allows me personally to look back through any competitions I've flown and look at my judging and remember and refresh myself and help try and improve my judging. It also helps with judges analysis, because you know exactly who was in the chair at the time. Nobody's going to remember in 24 hours who judge 1 for flight 1 in a competition was, but if you name the judge and you create the judge, you're going to know who that is. Okay, so that's my preference. Everybody's entitled to do their own way, which is why I'm going to demonstrate both methods in this video. I will start by just creating the shell of a competition using generic judges panel for a competition with a preliminary, a semi-final and a final, to show you the 3 different judges panels, how they interact with the flights, how they interact with the phases of the competition, and so on and so forth. Within that, we'll demonstrate how to edit the name of that judges panel from the default name in Nautiscore if you like, how to edit the name of the default judge from judge 1, judge 2, judge 3 in Nautiscore, and in the sample competition that 1, that's as far as I'm going to go with that. With sample competition 2, I am only going to run a preliminary competition because there's not much difference really in semi-finals and finals in relation to setup. In another tutorial down the track, I will talk about how to select pilots for semi-finals, how to select pilots for finals, but we can do that separately. And otherwise this video will be an hour and a half long. I think it's turned out to be almost 35 minutes as it is. As I said, I'm re-recording this introduction because the quality of the introduction was quite poor. My webcam settings were off. I didn't do that. I do my things in one hit. I do my videos in one recording. I don't edit. I don't do much. This is the first time I've actually splicing in a new introduction. It was just that bad. So in the sample competition 2, it will just be preliminary only, and I will show you how to create a judges panel for each flight, how to enter in judges in that into the system so that you've got your pool of judges, and how to allocate a judge to each panel, how to even change it. In fact, I actually make an error, and I'll show you how to correct that error and how to spot that error. And then I'll go in to show you how to open flights, sequence orders, flight pilot orders, things like that, how to manually do it, how to automatically do it, how to juggle it around. I forgot how to juggle it around. We'll do that in another video. And that'll be it. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please feel free to put your questions in the comments, suggest any other videos that you need tutorials on or would like tutorials on, and I will do my best to make them happen for you. Take care. Thank you. So as you can see here in my Nautiscore, it's just completely blank at the moment. So you'll be able to see when I'm left clicking because the mouse will change shape, right clicking because the mouse will change shape and color, and hopefully I will remember to actually tell you what I'm doing. Okay, so the first thing we've got to do when we're creating a competition is we do need to look at the competitions menu, which is up here in the top left, and when we click on the competitions item, it brings up this screen where you have your option to add a new competition. So there's your new competition button there. Now when we press add new competition, it brings in another menu, which is where you can set up your parameters. So the first competition I'm going to set up here will be the one with generic judges. So you can call your competition anything you like. In this competition field here, this is where you name your competition. So it could be, in my case, I'm in Queensland, Australia, so we do Queensland State Championships, or we fly at a club, you know, called Tin Can Bay, and it might be Tin Can Bay 30th of June, whatever the case may be, and I name it. We fly different classes. We got sportsman, advanced, expert, so on and so forth, and we name our competitions as such. For the sake of these examples, I'm going to do sample 1 and sample 2. I use my tab key a lot, or you can of course use your mouse, select your drop downs. I will select competition type APA because I'm from the APA, but as you can see here, you've got other options for World Championships, European Championships, things like that. And I'll mouse through to the type, and I'm going to use F3A as my demonstration. Category, then you can see the categories here denote how some of the scoring happens. So for example, you got some of your World Cup options here and things like that that come in the category. Because I'm familiar with it, I'm just going to use the APA rules, and then you type. These are all free fields for the place. You know, I can zoom in on that one, I think, a little bit. Yes, I can. My shortcut key came up there. But you know, I'm in Brisbane. So how about I use the place Brisbane, organizer, I'll say I've done it, and then you pick your number of flights for your preliminary rounds, and as soon as you select your number, and I'll use the tab key here, as soon as I tab off the number of flights for the preliminary rounds, it's going to bring me into the form where I select a schedule. So what maneuvers are the pilots going to fly? Now I haven't removed any schedules from the core image of Nautiscore, and as you can see, there's a comprehensive list of schedules here. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to use a schedule we use quite frequently in Australia. We use the FAI A schedules for our expert class, which is one class below FAI. I'm just going to select FAI for this. Now you'll notice it asks for number of flights for semi-final or number of flights for final. In this sample, I am actually going to allocate flights in a semi-final and a final to show you how the judges panel will work all the way through. And while these are 0, I can't select anywhere the schedule that I want to fly in the semi-finals, because you might want to pick an F schedule, you might want to pick an unknown, so on and so forth, depending what you do. But as soon as I put a number in, you'll see a new pop-up box appears. And again, you just go through the selection and you pick anything you want. Again, for the sake of convenience, I'm just going to pick the top one on the list for myself, because it really doesn't matter. You choose the schedule that you want to fly. Same with the finals. As soon as I put in a number of flights for the finals and I get to choose those numbers, 1, 2, 3, 5, up to you. I also get to choose my schedule. Again, for the sake of demonstration, I am just picking a schedule. You select your date. So when you click on the date, you'll get a pop-up box for when is your competition starting, when is your competition ending. So let's just say that this one's going to start on the 24th of July and I'm going to have it run through until the 25th of July. Do you need to use TBL? Yes or no? These are just select boxes. So you just click on the box, left click, choose what you want. Again, obviously, as I'm sure you're all aware, there's rules around TBL when you need to use it. There's a drop down box here for you to choose the new normalization method, no normalization, etc., etc. All pretty easy. Many people ask, what's this promotion box? That is something that runs in Australia. We have a promotion system to move people from flying in the lower classes up into the higher classes. And it talks about the average of flights and all that. I won't bore you with that detail. Competition administration, that is required to be a yes if after you've set up your competition you want to remove a pilot or something like that. The system won't allow you to remove a pilot unless you turn administration on. Public access talks about whether the scores of a flight can be seen without being an administration logon or anything like that. And here's where we come to the generic judges panel. So at the moment this is selected no, so I'm going to select yes. So what I'm telling the system now is that I want it to, for each flight, so for my preliminary flights, my semi-final flights, and my final flights, I wanted to create a panel. So I want a panel for judging preliminary, I want a panel for judging semi, and I want a panel for judging final. I also wanted to create generic judges. So it will create 3 judges and name them Judge 1, Judge 2, or Judge 3. I can, of course, choose a file here and put a logo on the competition. I won't actually do that for this demonstration, just for the sake of it. So now when I press the create button, my competition will create. And you can see here, I'll just zoom in a little bit on the top left here. You can see in my list of competitions now, I have a competition ID 1. And when I go to the home menu, that competition is now appearing on my home screen. So just like that, it's on the home screen. So your next stage with setting up a competition is to go into the competition admin. So this menu here is for the administration. This is where you choose your pilots or enter your pilots or amend your judges and things like that. So when I click into this competition admin, I come to a screen. It looks a bit busy, but it's not. So this screen, each of these menus, you can reduce or expand. So I will just expand my flight menus just to show you what we have. So when I chose the setup, I chose 1, 2, 3, 4 preliminary flights, 1, 2 semi-finals, and 2 final flights. You can see that the panel, which is the judges panel, is panel P, P, P for preliminary, S, S for semi, F and F for final. And I can see those judges panels by expanding the judges panel box on this page. I can, of course, even though they've been made generic, I can edit these judges panels if I want to and choose to allocate them to a different phase. I'm not going to do that. You can add your jury. In this case, I haven't added a jury. I think that's fairly obvious. Select new, enter your jury name, person's name, their function within the jury or the contest administrator, etc., and go from there. My judges have been created as generic. I see it's 1, 2, 3. I can, of course, edit these judges. So I click on the judges line. I click the edit button here. Let's just zoom in a little bit on that. And I can change the judge number. I can give them a different name. You know, you can give them a function, or they sent to judge, put in their license number, whichever the case may be, and I can assign them to a panel or not just by ticking these buttons here. And are they international judge, are they national judge, and so on and so forth. For the sake of sample 1, I won't be making any changes, and I hit save. Okay, so what that allows us to do now is, once we add competitors, we can then go into opening a flight, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the video, and commence the competition. So when I look here at my competitors and officials tab, sorry, let me zoom out a bit, my humblest apologies. I'll just jump back to the home screen. What I looked at there was, on the competition, there was a tab called competitors and officials. So I left clicked on that, which shows me again just more information. If I had added my competitors, they would be here. It tells me my judges here, tells me the flights, tells me the status, are they closed, are they open, are they finalized, etc., etc., etc. So I'll just pop back to the home menu for a moment. That is the first step of setting up competition using the generic judges panel. I'm now going to set up a second sample competition using a non-generic. So I will have to create all of the judges panels myself, and I will have to create the judges myself, and I will do that using the Pilot database. I'm not sure if many of you have had experience using the Pilot database, but there is a Pilot database in the system here where you can get it to a lot of detail. This is the Australian Pilot database. I can sort it by class. I can sort it by name just by picking on the column headers. You know, we can do lots of sorting with it and things like that. We use Pilot IDs. I'll do a separate tutorial on the Pilot database at some point. So I'm now back on my competitions tab, and I'm going to create a second competition and not choose a generic competition. So again, we click new. There's a 2 in there because that's my shortcut key for changing the zoom on the camera. I'll just zoom in a bit. You would have seen the 5 pop in. That again is just my shortcut key for my recording device, so let's not worry about that. I'm going to go sample 2. I'm going to tab through, use my down arrows, and I'm going to select all of the options I want in this. So place is Brisbane, and I can't even spell, that's fun. Maybe I've drank too much whiskey already. For this sample, I will only do a preliminary flight because it's not necessary for me to do finals to show you the whole manual setup. So I will leave semi-final, final at 0. I will just pick my dates. I'll just pick the same dates as the other sample just for the sake of conversation. And generic panel, I will say no. So you will recall in the last one, the generic panel was yes. In this one, I am saying no. And now I'll just zoom back out so we can see that button. And I will press create. When I go back to my home screen, we now have on the home screen, I have 2 competitions. And I think we can zoom in on that one there. So I now have a competition ID 2. So here was my sample 1. So the competition name was sample 1. It's competition ID 1. Here is my competition name sample 2. You see the name up here. competition ID 2, and now when I press competition admin on this competition, you will notice the judges panel is empty, the judges list is empty. When I go to the flights, it is empty. The panel is empty. That's because they do not exist. Okay. This takes longer to do because I'm speaking about it. If we were doing this as normal setup, this won't take as long. So what I need to do is I've got 4 preliminary flights. So I need to make a decision. Am I going to have one judges panel for all 4 flights? Am I going to have a judges panel for flight 1 and 3 or flight 2 and 4? Whichever the case may be, I need to make those decisions. Personally, I choose to create a judges panel for each flight. So I will create a judges panel for flight 1, flight 2, flight 3 and flight 4. And the reason I do that is because if we select judges to judge flight 1 and select judges to judge flight 2 or 3 or 4, for example, and somebody gets ill or something like that, I can easily swap the judges out without actually getting another judge to sit in the chair using the wrong ID or something like that. So to create a judges panel, relatively easy. You press the new, I'll just zoom in on that, and it comes up with a little pop-up box where it's free text. Name your panel. I'm going to name this panel flight 1. Normally I might say it's advanced flight 1 or expert flight 1 or F3A flight 1, depending on the case. I'm going to name this flight 1, and I will copy that so that I don't have to type it again. I then choose what phase, preliminary, semi-final or final. As you can see, this competition only has preliminaries, so I'm going to choose preliminary and I'm going to create my panel. So now in my box I've got a judges panel for flight 1. So I'm going to repeat that process for flight 2. So I'll just paste in flight 1, use my drop down, hit the create button. There's my flight 2. Again, bit of pasting here for flight 3. Hit create. And last judges panel, because in this sample I have 4 flights, I now have 4 judges panels. You can see that there for 4 judges panels. But what you can also see is up here is the flights still do not have the panels. So if I double click on a flight, it will pop up to a pop-up box just like you see on your screen now. Got this lovely pop-up box that pops up for the flight and asks me, I can choose whether they're on flight line 1 or flight line 2 for the flight. Sometimes we fly 2 lines. And now I choose what panel do I want to have scoring flight 1. And I want panel flight 1. Likewise, I want flight 2 for the second flight. I would like to select flight 3 for this flight, and I want to select flight 4 for this flight. So now you'll see I've got 4 flights with 4 judges panels assigned to them. So next step is I need judges. So I move down to my judges and I can add judges. So I can either add a judge, let's see if I can zoom in on this. Yes, I can. I can add a judge by pressing new, and I get this lovely box where I can type from scratch the judge's number, their name, the function, everything like that, and choose what panel I want to have that judge assigned to. That's a form field that you fill in every time. This is why some people like the generic judges, because they just want to choose judge 1, judge 2, judge 3. They don't want to constantly have to do that. So that's why they use generic judges. I'm not going to use that option. I'm going to close that just by Xing it, and I'm going to choose a judge from the database. As I've mentioned before, here in Australia we use a pilot database. So all of our regular competitors are in a little database connected into the Nautiscore. It lives in the Raspberry that we use, and we choose from there. What that means is it makes it quite quick for us to choose. So if I click, sorry, I'm choosing the wrong button, choose the database for the judges. You can choose from the pilot database, and we use pilots as judges, or we just have some people who are just judges, but we put them in the pilot database and it works. So I can choose from the database. What that does is it brings up this little menu for me where it lists my pilot ID. I can search, and I know the lovely Simon, I know his number. I can search by the pilot ID and see if I can zoom in on that. Now I can't quite zoom in well enough on that section, so we'll just leave it on full screen. And I can either search by a pilot number, or I can sort by, you know, the pilot class. You know, here in Australia we have advanced, we have expert, we have, and I'll show all here. We have advanced, we have expert, we have F3A, we have all of these different pilots. So I can search by number. I can either sort or search. So look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just choose a few judges out of my my pilot list here. Look, here's myself. I'm going to put myself in as a judge. Now, if I hold the control key, I can also select another judge. And I can select another judge. Some of you will be familiar with Aaron Garrell there. I'm sure you've seen him around. And how about I select Simon to put into my judges pool? Ah, look, lovely George Falcon. I know Michael Hobson, he always loves to judge. Loves judging people. I'll select these. Where's Mr. Peter Panisi? Everybody knows Peter Panisi. He'll be down there, 484 somewhere. And I'll select Peter Panisi. Now notice I'm selecting judges at will. I'm just choosing any judge I want from the list of names. I'm holding down the control key as I select the judges, and you can see all of these judges are highlighted. I can do this one at a time. I'm rolling back up to the top. I can do this one at a time, or I can do this in a group by holding the control key. And then once I've made all my selection, there's a button called Copy to Competition. I press that button, it will flick me back to my competition, and here is my pool of judges. So I now have these judges in the pool, which is wonderful. So I've got these judges here in my pool of judges. So I've got my flights there. I'll just collapse my flights out of my way. I've got my judges panels. I've got flight 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I've got my pool of judges. Now I didn't give much care to this, so hopefully I've got the right number of judges. So if I then go to the right hand side of my judges list and do a single click on the line, my 4 panels. So if I pop this up, you can see I've got 4 judges panels. When I click here, I can see those 4 judges panels. So I can go, I'm going to have Simon, judge flight 1. I'm going to just click on myself. I'm going to judge flight 1. And let's put Aaron Garrell in this judges panel as well. So I've clicked on that. So then if I randomly click, I can see I've allocated 3 judges to flight 1. So let's pick 3 judges and allocate them to flight 2. And I'm not paying much attention to the judges I'm selecting here. I'm just doing it. And look, we'll select some judges on flight 3. So what have I got? Okay, might get Simon on flight 3 as well, and I might put him on flight 4. So I got Simon on flight 3 and 4. Let's put this person on flight 3, and I need one more judge on flight 3. I'll do that. I can actually now sort, and I can see I've got 1 judge, 1, 2, 3 on flight 1. I've got 1, 2, 3 on flight 2. I've got a 3, a 3, a 3, a 3, and I wonder how I'm doing. There's a button up on the top left hand corner that says competition check, and I press that. It's got no errors detected. So what that's telling me is all flights have a judge assigned to them, all panels exist, things like that. So it's pretty cool. But look, we do know that by looking at this, I've only got 1 judge allocated to flight 4. So what we'll do is we'll pop this open. We'll select this judge here. I've missed the button. Sorry, my dumb thumbs. We'll pop this open. We'll select a judge. Now, the reason this is good is I've selected Michael Paul here to be a judge for flight 4. If Michael got ill during the day and was no longer available by the time we get to flight 4, I can simply untick Michael and I can add myself in, and it's wonderful. is just so easy to do. So again, I can sort through the judges. It gives me an easy way to count. I can see a 1, 1, 1 and 2, 2, 2. I've got a 3, a 3, a 3, and I've got a 4, a 4, and a 4. So I've got 3 judges allocated to every competition, which is wonderful. So if I pop back to the home screen and we have a look at this competition, and I can go into competitors and officials, again I can see all of that information here as well. So sorry, let's zoom out a bit. I can see all of that information. Now as you can see on this, I don't need to come to this screen, it's just a great little view. Tells me my competition ID, which is 2, tells me my competitors, and I have none in, so I need to take care of that. So we pop back into the competition admin of the particular competition that we're dealing with, and I'll just move my judges. I'll just minimize that so I've got more space on my screen, and I select my competitors. Again, just like every other option, I can press the new button and it'll bring up a little box, and I can type in a pilot number, last name, category of the pilot, whether it's senior, junior, female, etc., etc. You'll see that those drop downs are there. You know, you can just pop it all in, and I can add that pilot. I can put in their FAID number, everything like that. Here again in Australia, we don't put pilots in one by one. We do use the pilot database, so I am going to demonstrate it with this. Similar to how I chose my judges, I am going to demonstrate by choosing in the database. So I press the choose in the database button. You know, I can search, as I said before, or I can display different numbers of pilots on my thing, and I can just select the pilots who are showing up. I'm just holding control, and I'm just, for the sake of this example, I am just randomly selecting pilots. Let's select a few more, shall we? And I'm just randomly selecting pilots from my pilot database. Please accept my apologies if I'm scrolling too hard. I may have selected some pilots that I've already put in the judges panel, but you know, I'm not sure. Now when we come back, here are my pilots, and I can see that I've got 15 pilots in this competition. So in a very quick order, I have created the flights. Yes, it's taken a bit longer because I'm speaking about it and I'm explaining what I'm doing as I go. I've created my flights, I've created my judges panels, and I have then assigned my judges panels to my flights. I have created my judges by, in my case, choosing from the database, and I have assigned my judges to each flight, or rather to each panel, and then I have selected my competitors. So this is where the next stage comes along, where there are also some choices on how you run your competition. So I'm just going to press the home key and show you something. So if we go, I'm going to choose the competition sample 2, where I did all the manual stuff, and if I go to the flight director, I can now see my 4 flights, and I can see that the status of those flights is closed. If I click in, I'll click on flight 1 rather than flight 2. If I click in, a little box opens up. Whoops, sorry, my screen refreshed, my apologies. Click in, a box opens up. And I can now choose to open this flight. And what open means is I'm telling the flight to receive scores. Get ready to receive scores. Sorry, it refreshes if I don't get a move on. I'm telling the flight to receive scores from the hand units. So we all saw the hand unit earlier. I'm telling the flight to receive scores from the hand units. I'm telling the flight to be opened. This screen will refresh in a moment now. Here we go. It's automatically refreshed. Just turn off automatic translation. And as you can see, now in this flight, my apologies, let's zoom out. The flight is refreshed. I have opened flight 1. This is telling me, this page does refresh every so often because it's expecting some information. So apologies on that one. I will talk a little bit quicker. So I've got my flight open, I've got my pilots, you can see the 3 judges that I have allocated to flight 1. So that is going to refresh a little bit. In competition, that doesn't matter because we're not really looking at the screen. And if I'm not generating an automatic flight order, I can manually choose the order of pilots here by selecting the next pilot with these tick boxes. And in the order that I tick these boxes is the order in which these pilots will fly. And as you can see, the numbers are popping in the order that I tick the boxes. That's not a very practical way of doing things, but it is a method that you can use. So to show you a more practical way of that, I am going to go back to the competition. I will go into competition administration. I probably will actually, before I do this, again, notice I'm in a different screen and I still have the option to open or close the flights that I had in the flight director screen. So in competition admin, I can still open and close the flights. However, I don't need to be here. I can be in competition admin, or in flight director rather, and do that. But what I want to do is I don't want to have to tick that flight order for 15 pilots. What if there was more? It's a lot of ticking. So down here on the bottom of the screen, there's a flight orders and next pilot. If I initiate the flight order, you'll get a little pop-up box that comes up the top telling you want to generate the flight order. That then comes to a pop of the offset. So do you want the pilots to fly in the same order for every flight, or do you want to offset the pilots? It's defaulted to 4. I can type any number I want. Whoops, my zooming is changing because of my shortcut key. So I'm just going to offset these pilots by, let's do it by 6. And let me just get back to, I'll press OK on that and then fix my zoom. Sorry about that. What that has done, it has now generated my pilot. And down at the bottom here, I can see that Nick Baker, thank you Nick, or Barker, is in flight 1, pilot 1. But he's moved down the order for flight 2 and down the order for flight 3. So the pilot that is flight, it's offset by 6 because I chose 6. So the pilots that flights pilot 7 in the first flight is pilot 1 in the second, and so on and so forth. I can press this button and it will produce a PDF that I can print. And I can print, and it shows everybody the order of the flights, and it shows everybody the judges who are, and look, it shows where I made a mistake and selected 4 judges in error for flight 2, 4 judges in error for flight 3, and I've got 3 judges for each flight. That's my error. That's my error, and I'm not going to go correct it. I'm just going to go and close this screen, and I'm just going to go back here to my judges panel and sort this out. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have three judges everywhere. So how about I just pull that one out? And what was it? Was it flight 3? I put in 3 judges. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. I'll just take this judge out of flight panel 3. I'll go back. I don't need to change my flight orders. I'll do my preliminary flight order, do a check, and look. See how quickly I was able to reselect judges. Reselect judges so easily, so quickly. My flight order hasn't changed. All of that works lovely. And I can just come back to my main screen here, and there's my competition. Whoops, I went to the wrong screen, my apologies. Come back to my, I'll just go back to flight director of this. I will pop this flight open, and I just click here. And we're almost there, folks. Sorry, I know this video has been just over half an hour long, so this screen will refresh me in a moment. I'll just press F9 to refresh it. And now, again, silly James. What I need to do is, when I'm in competition administration, common mistake, I've generated my flight orders. I checked it by looking at the PDF. I must press this button here, and I copy that flight order to the flights. You can see that pop-up has come up. Click OK to copy order to the flights. Now when I copy that order to the flights, I'll go home If I now pop into the flight director of this, you see that these pilots are sequenced. I have flight 1 open, the pilots are sequenced as per that PDF. If I change and I can open flight 2, and you'll notice as soon as I open flight 2, flight 1 closes. The screen will refresh, and now you can see there's a different flight order because that's the flight order that was selected for flight 2 automatically, so on and so forth. I'll just open flight 3. The screen will refresh in a moment for me. I'll just press F9. There we go. Screen refreshes. You can see flight 3 is open. It's telling me my flight orders. So once your flight is open, it is now ready to receive scores from your automatic unit. And in this case, because flight 1 is open, when I switch on the automatic unit, it's going to receive the detail for the pilot 1, flight 1, competition ID 2. I think I'll leave it there for this case because I'm not talking about any more of setting up a competition as such. Now, you know, there's a stage where I'll do another video. We have there's a functionality in the competition screen where you can actually sequence the competitions to run automatically so that it opens in between flights, but I'll do that in a different demonstration. I'm not going to do that right now. So what we've got, and you can see on this home screen, I've got one competition where it's all shaded green, one was red. The green one tells me the competition that has an open flight. If I switch on a number, that will tell me camera's back on. If I switch on an automatic unit, that's the competition that's going to come through to the unit. That's the flight that's going to come through to the unit. So look, I'll try and wrap that up there. I hope that was useful. That is the setup of a competition, both with generic panel and with your manual setup. I tried to go at a pace that was useful. I'm happy for feedback and comments. I will mark different sections of this video in the comments, so with different timestamps. If you'd like to see anything else, please don't hesitate to comment below. I will be doing some other videos in the next few weeks or days, hopefully, in relation to how to sequence your competition and get the competition next comp to open and close your flights automatically. In this demonstration here, I did show how I manually open a flight. When you receive all your scores from all your judges and pilots in a flight that's open, you would then manually mark the flight as completed so that you can generate your scores. We'll cover that in a different video. This was purely about setup because that's the request that I've been had. So cheers. I'll have another few bits of whiskey. I've got the fire lighting in the corner because it's a very chilly 16 degrees in Brisbane here today. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and I look forward to your comments.